What is up, everyone? Welcome into the Fight HQ preview for UFC 285. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. Of course, that is my guy, Pete Rogers Jr. As we're here to break down UFC 285. Of course, appreciate everyone taking the show in, whether you're watching us live on YouTube, maybe you watch us after the fact on YouTube, or you check us out over on the podcast channels. If you are checking us out on the podcast channels, we would appreciate if you would be able to hit that like button. Sometimes, Pete, I forget about closing out certain windows where I start hearing myself in echo, but gotta get rid of that. Being in radio, I'm just so used to someone talking in my ear, so that's not really a big issue for me. But happy Friday, Pete. How you doing, man?
Such a rookie. What's up, Jason? Happy to be here to discuss one of the best cards of the year and with some of the highest stakes that we've seen in some time. So cannot wait to debate this card with my boy, Jason Floyd. Thank you guys for tuning into our channel, Fight HQ. Really appreciate it. If it's your first time checking us out, please subscribe to the channel so you guys don't miss any of our content for PFL, UFC, Bellator, and whatnot. Excited to go through this card from a betting standpoint, also touching on daily fantasy, of course, which is, my wheelhouse, your wheelhouse, and interested to see where the differences are throughout this card, because there's some intriguing underdogs, and there's some underdogs that I'm going to be a little bit more confident playing and targeting. So all in all, can't wait, man. UFC 285, well done job, UFC.
Yeah, obviously this fight card, the pay-per-view 5 card is just an amazing lineup from the UFC debut to Uppo Nickal, Shavkat, Rakhmonov, taking that next step up. I think it's I think the UFC feels this a little bit of a showcase matchup because this fight was always supposed to happen all the way back in December, now happening here. And then, of course, you got 2 title fights. And I'll tell you, I think from a DFS aspect, me and Pete were talking about this before the show, I truly believe in terms of taking down an optimal lineup tomorrow on DK, that match between Gamrot and Turner is key.
Yeah, you said that to me. You were like, which fight do you think is going to be required to be a part of the optimal? You said Gamrot and Turner. I think that's going to be a very important one for sure. I was kind of, residing with Derek Brunson against Dricus du Plessis. That's kind of where I was thinking your mind was at. And I think they're very, very important fights for the fight card. It's going to tell a lot for our fantasy lineups, whether you are going towards popular plays or popular fights. But yeah, I definitely really like that Derek Brunson du Plessis fight. And I'm not against getting to that Gamrot Jamie Pickett fight. I mean, imagine that Gamrot Jamie Pickett, Gamrot Jalin Turner fight.
Yeah, there's a couple of, you mentioned about Derek Brunson, and when I first started looking at the salaries this week, that was one that kind of stuck out to me because, yes, Derek Brunson's, aging as a fighter, but, it's one of those fights where I don't love the gas tank of either one of those guys. But also I look at, these are the situations where Derek Brunson as an underdog has really come in and cashed in. So that one kind of stuck out to me. Obviously we're going to break down all these fights. Ian Garry, I'm really to get your take on Ian Garry because there's going to become a point to where we need to fade Ian Garry. And I don't know if it's tomorrow, but at some point it's just because these lines are just pretty out there with him in terms of that one. But there's some other fights on this card that I do think are key. I think Garbrandt Jones is another one that could be a little bit of a key in terms of being optimal. Did I pique your brain a little bit there?
A little bit. I'm interested with that fight for sure. And some heavy favorites on the card. Some of the craziest things in the world, and I can't wait to talk about one of the hottest prospects in the sport, and Bo Nickal, if not the hottest prospect. I've never seen a line like this, Jason. Minus 650 inside the distance. I've never seen anything like that in my life. That's absolutely absurd.
Yeah, depending on the sports book you're at, it's because I was over at Best Fight Odds this morning putting together my spreadsheet. And, it ranges anywhere from like 14-1 favorite to like a 22-1 favorite. Look, Bo Nickal, I think, is a real deal. We're going to find out a lot about Bo Nickal here tomorrow night. And I'll say this for anyone who did not catch Cody Garbrandt's media day interview. You want to talk about a fighter not holding back and talking about all the issues that he had leading into his last fight, going through a divorce, having to sell his house, moving across the country. And he just talked about, he said, he goes, I was in a really bad place. And I thought, typically when we have these media day interviews and there's adversity in a fighter's life, they tiptoe around what that adversity may be. Man, Cody Garbrandt went all in. He let everyone know exactly what's been going on in his life, and going through a divorce. They have a child together. He's talking about that, and it was interesting to kind of hear him open up and talk about how I believe that his quote was, "My life was in shambles."
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, right? And we're not talking about robots. We're talking about human beings, and every single human being on this card can get sick before a card. They can suffer injuries. They can be dealing with personal issues and drama and family issues, and the list goes on and on. Sometimes, like, the fight night comes, and certain fighters just didn't want to be there. And I remember Cody Garbrandt, in that media day interview, was talking about, like, oh, now I got to fight. You know what I mean? Like, it's a battle to get on the scale, and then you have to go out there and perform too. So when your life is in shambles, fighting could be a distraction, and your mind could be elsewhere. So, but also sometimes it's some of the best ways to straighten everything out as well. So interested to see how he looks in this fight against Trevin Jones. But yeah, let's get going. I love it.
Of course, we do have our listener contest over there on DraftKings. Kudos to Leo OM76 taking down first place last week. Pete, where were you?
Shut up, Jason. You know what I mean? I'll tell you what. I had a good. What's this? 2 weeks in a row. Jason's in the top three, so he's cashing. I tell you, I play DFS a little wild, so yeah, I think most of our community is probably going to have an edge when it comes to me in a single entry contest, because I try to just get a little too ballsy with it. But Jason's been 2 for 2,
bro. That's my wheelhouse.
Cashing 2 for 2. I love
Cash head to heads. That's my wheelhouse. Someone was talking earlier this week about game theory, and I was like, that's why I go. Look, we're all chasing those big money in GPPs. We all want to take down $150,000 tomorrow night. But I love just playing cash head to heads. It's a great way to build your bankroll to where you're never having to deposit on DraftKings. You're just taking money out and just keep filling up that bankroll. It's one of the best things I tell people to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to get a part of the action, make sure you guys check out our weekly contest that is definitely in our description. And, just join our Discord as well. It's free to join. We talk fights all week long. I mean, I think the conversations, as soon as the last week's card ended, we were already on to talking and discussing about UFC, UFC 285 here, Jones against Ciryl Gane. So, we turn the page and we keep it going.
And of course, a great way to show your support, along with subscribing to the channel and hitting that thumbs up button here on YouTube, is check out the offer that Stochastic has for the Fight HQ listeners. Appreciate the people that have been taking advantage of that. Is a great way to show your support, because me and Pete do get a piece of that when you do take advantage of those deals that Stochastic has. But Pete, let's get right into this fight card, and I'm pretty sure the banter between us is going to get good right here. Jon Jones, Ciryl Gane. And the reason I know this is because of the text message exchange me and Pete were having yesterday. Is I had to shoot him with that gif. Oh, you crazy.
All right, well, let's kind of lay it out right here. We have Jon Jones coming off a long hiatus, getting back into action, not at his natural weight class as a light heavyweight, looking to do the impossible and move up to heavyweight. And the gap between light heavyweight and heavyweight is significant. And I do think that is being underestimated in a situation like this, because going from light heavy to heavy is unlike anything else, because, I would traditionally say the skill level of heavyweights does not match up with the skill level of light heavyweights. But within that lack of skill, there is significant weight difference. This is essentially like a 55er going to middleweight. There is a significant gap in that weight. And I got to tell you, man, Ciryl Gane's a big boy, and he does not move like a heavyweight at all. If we had Jon Jones going in there against a plodding heavyweight, it's still Jon Jones at the end of the day. He's the greatest of all time. I love his skill set. And initially, when I was watching Ciryl Gane against Francis Ngannou, I'm pretty sure I tweeted, Jon Jones beats them both. So I'm full transparency. I said that. So then obviously I have to do my due diligence, and I have to put everything under a microscope and watch each one of these fighters' fights, check out the fight film and everything. And I'll tell you what, man, I don't know what this belief I had of Jon Jones, or this idea I had of Jon Jones. His past 2 performances were extremely poor. I did not like what I saw against Thiago Santos, who is a man basically on one leg, basically with no legs, and there was no finish there. There was a split decision there. Failed to secure his one takedown attempt. But it's the Dominic Reyes fight for me where I was just like, really? You went 2 of 9 in the takedown department, and I just did not see that dominance within the wrestling game. And I know what everybody's going to point to, and everybody's going to say, well, Ciryl Gane got out wrestled by a knockout artist in Francis Ngannou. You're completely right with that. I do think that there are some people underestimating the power and strength that Francis Ngannou has. Just the weight in general. He's a massive human being. And I do think that throwing a curveball in a striking matchup can actually throw off your opponent. There's no way Ciryl Gane was preparing for any defensive takedowns against Francis Ngannou, even though I think he should have. But it just threw him completely off. So, Jason, with all that being said, I do think that this is a tall order, even for a guy like Jon Jones to do, because 3 years away from the cage, ring rust is a factor. His past 2 performances aren't the best performances. Yes, the Alexander Gustafsson one was strong. Anthony Smith fight was okay, but it's the Thiago Santos and Dominic Reyes one where I really feel like everybody's just banking on a better and new and improved Jon Jones to show up. I really think that Ciryl Gane's going to shock some people. I'm telling you, the safe way to do this is that DraftKings scoring system favors takedown artists. Jon Jones at 8,400 is a broken price tag for a 5-round fight. I really think it is. If he gets a takedown, it could just be one and done, and he could secure a finish over Ciryl Gane. But this is heavyweight, man. We see heavyweights just stand up. We see like Derek Lewis with the most lack of skill in the stand-up department, getting back to his feet, but he just does. I do think that people are kind of overestimating what Jon Jones can do to Ciryl Gane, not from a technical standpoint, but from a strength standpoint. So I might be crazy, but I'm going to get to more Ciryl Gane this week to be different than I am Jon Jones. And if it sinks my ship, I'm okay with it. But I really think that Ciryl Gane's going to win this and spoil the return of Jon Jones. Can't wait to hear your counterpoint, Jason, because I already know you're a Jon Jones fan. So can't wait to hear it.
First off, you bring up point number 1. He got taken down 4 times with a guy with a blown out knee who is a brawler. Mm-hmm. Now, I think you can admit this. There are question marks on both sides of the equation. Are there more question marks on the Jon Jones equation? I believe there is. 3 years away. How does his body transformation translate into heavyweight from what we saw at light heavyweight? And you bring up a great point. His past 3 fights at light heavyweight were not the GOAT performances that we saw throughout Jon Jones's run as a 205-pound champion. I know a lot of people have taken these digs at Jon Jones on how he's framed the guys that he's brought in to work with, Jorgen Castro, Walt Harris, Maurice Green. But I will turn that to people who want to say that. Who is Ciryl Gane working with? What are their credentials as mixed martial artists? I like, it's one of those things of, because we do, I've tried to take in as much content as possible this week. And I'm like, who are the MMA wrestlers that Ciryl Gane is working with? That to me is a question mark. And I spoke about the show on my show on Wednesday, Pete. To me, if Ciryl Gane wins this fight, it's about making this a fight at range and stopping the takedowns. If you tell me this is a clinch, phone booth type fight, I think it's Jon Jones' fight to lose, even without scoring a takedown.
Yeah, I mean, it all makes sense, and everything you're saying is completely right. I think that in all likelihood should happen. I'll tell you what, though, I think Jon Jones, in a way, is completely underestimating what's in front of him. Ciryl Gane's a massive human being with superior athleticism, great footwork. He's stressed that enough in his media, but I don't think that he's going to realize how difficult it's going to be to get a hold of him because of just he hasn't had to deal with that in the light heavyweight division. He's going to get hit with shots. I think he's going to get busted up. And I think he's going to be in desperation mode, because if you go and you check out all of his fights, his most recent fights, it really leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, Dominic Reyes, he went 2 of 9 in the takedown department, 0 of 1 against Thiago Santos, 3 of 8 against Anthony Smith, 1 of 5 against Alexander Gustafsson. In the previous matchup against Alexander Gustafsson, went 1 of 11 Granted, it can only take one from Jon Jones, but I saw Dominic Reyes get back to his feet, no problem at all. And I think the one situation could be Jon Jones's cardio. I think he's going to be surprised at how tired he gets carrying all this extra weight around, in addition to dealing with somebody who's superior, who has such a strength advantage. Come fight night, it's different when you're training with somebody, but I think under the lights, I don't know. I just think it's a lot for Jon Jones, and everybody's expecting it to be typical Jon Jones, go out there and dominate. The price point's broken. If you're a safe player, how could you go against the GOAT? I'm just telling you, I'm not that type of player. I'm going to go Ciryl Gane here at 7,800 just to be different. But I do think that this main event scores decently well. I really do, because if Jon Jones doesn't initiate grappling, I think Ciryl Gane kind of picks him apart from range en route to a decision, which at 7,800 is going to be enough.
Yeah, my concern about Ciryl Gane is just he's not exactly a volume puncher. So I mean that's the only thing that kind of concerns me. Looking over the prop market in this one, on the Jon Jones side, the one prop that's just juicy to me would be Jones winning via submission at plus 1,600. Looking at Ciryl Gane, the one that I would say sticks out to me the most is him winning via decision at plus 325.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that if Gane wins, it's probably by decision. I mean, we've seen Jon take some big shots. Even his striking, right? Like, I do think that, he's so used to having superior reach within the light heavyweight division. Now he's like a typical heavyweight, whereas like he's kind of like in a mirror match against Ciryl Gane as far as like frame goes. A little bit of a reach advantage for Jon still, but I think that even like a guy in Dom Reyes, like, I don't know. I just go back and I don't see the Jon Jones dominance that everybody else sees. I think and know the reputation of Jon Jones, and I think that's kind of what Vegas is doing, and that's why we've seen this line completely flip, and all the money's coming in on Jon Jones. I don't know, man. I'm going Ciryl Gane.
Look, I'll flat out say this: Jon Jones is a core cash play for me this week.
Makes sense. Yeah, he's probably the safest play as far as like resume is considered. And it's like if Khabib Nurmagomedov's on the card, I'm not going to steer you away from it. But me personally, I think that Ciryl Gane is going to figure it out against Jon Jones.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the big question with Jon is just simply, do you see any ring rust with him? It's 3 years away, new weight class, all the pressure's on him. I mean, look, all you have to do is watch how the UFC is marketed this pay-per-view. They are all in. All the chips are in the center of the table on Jon Jones. It's very clear who the UFC prefers to win this matchup.
Yeah, I also think I was expecting a different body transformation for Jon Jones.
Same.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I think it's like he still kind of looks like an overblown light heavyweight. He doesn't really truly look like a heavyweight to me. He looks like a light heavyweight out of camp. He's still tall. His stature is great. His length is great. But for all this weightlifting, he's top heavy for sure. And I do think a guy who can chip away at the legs like Ciryl Gane, I think it could pose some problems for Jon Jones.
I mentioned some questions that we got in the chat. And, one of the questions earlier on the show was basically about the whole, and really it came from Chael Sonnen talking about Jones doing a lot of work in the pool. Jones has always done a lot of work in the pool. This isn't
Correct.
new. Like, this is not something new.
Yeah, no, I mean, when I was out in New Mexico, and John's from New Mexico, and Cowboy Cerrone is one of the guys that really introduced swimming a lot to a lot of the fighters out there at Greg Jackson's. So, it was something that everybody a part of Jackson Wink kind of just like added to their training regimen. So Jon Jones has been swimming for a long time. Anybody that's saying Jon Jones is injured because of the low impact of swimming, there are tons of advantages for people who swim versus people who run. Less impact on your joints. Like Kamaru Usman can't run, can't even walk on concrete, but he does other things to really get his cardio up there. An aerodyne bike, swimming, whatnot. It's super common. So I could just tell you that Jon Jones has been doing pool work his entire career.
Let's move over to our next question. And this comes from James. He says, what if Jones can't get the takedowns well and Gane just boxes from the outside? Should we fade the main event?
I'm not fading the main event just because I'm not in love with so many underdogs. It could come down to roster construction and finding the correct underdogs, whereas like paying up a little bit for that 8,000 or 8,200 fighter might be the correct pivot. For me, I'm not going to be fading the main personally, just because I like to have a lot of my chips, riding on the main event. And I just think the salaries make a ton of sense. If Gane was any cheaper, he'd be a lock. John Jones is pretty much, if you're favoring him, you can't get away from him at that price point. 8,400 for a 5-round fight. It's kind of crazy.
The 7,800 price point is hard to argue against. You're going to need 7,000 to 7,900 fighters to fit in Bo Nickal, Valentina Shevchenko, and Shavkat Rakhmonov. I don't think. I mean, look, if you're trying to hammer those three fighters all in one lineup, you're dumpster diving. You're dumpster diving.
It ain't gonna happen. I'm not in love with any 6,000 fighter this week, unless we have a fighter making in on a loss, which is something we'll get to. I don't necessarily foresee it happening this card. There's just too many live crazy matchups where I think just one talented fighter, at least one or two, are going to come through.
Of course, let's move over to that co-main event as we got a title matchup here. Valentina Shevchenko defending her women's flyweight title against Alexa Grasso, 9,400 for Shevchenko, 6,800 for Alexa Grasso. And Pete, I think this is one of those fights, and you've talked about this game theory for weeks here on Fight HQ, of you sometimes finding that fighter who's in this salary range like Alexa Grasso is and saying, even in a loss, if she can get you 30, 40 points, it could mean you taking down a tournament.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. And I've had significant success just having a losing fighter a part of my lineups. Because if you can see what ownership or where you can get leverage on the field, it can definitely set you up correctly. Whereas I'm going to bring him up forever. He's going to be most popular DFS name out there. Where Kozlo got me enough in a loss to really come through in a tournament. Alexa Grasso's in a similar situation here. Price at 6,800. She's not. She's a very skilled fighter, so it's not like she's a bum at all. Most of the fighters within the UFC aren't bums at all, and they're live to pull off victories. The issue is that Alexa Grasso, even in being a 5-round fight, is going up against, the best, in my opinion, the best women's mixed martial artist out there in Valentina Shevchenko. That's to be argued because of Amanda Nunes holding victories over Shevchenko, but my personal favorite, Valentina, is just, she's amazing. She can do it all. She can put together high striking volume. She can technically pick you apart from the outside. She can mix in her wrestling. She has pretty sound submission skills as well. I just like the way that she blends everything together, and then you have 25 minutes to work with. I thought last fight against Tyler Santos, as a minus 600 favorite, it was a pretty underwhelming performance, if I'm being honest. She landed 3 of 5 takedowns, only had 4 minutes of control time, landed only 77 significant strikes, en route to a 114-point performance. So that salary, where she was 9,600, even at 114, like that's kind of like borderline. That's just enough. We need at least 110 at 9,400 to make it work. I think that she has just such a great floor because she can get you a finish. She can also get you a dominant decision victory as well. Lauren Murphy in the 4th round, she scored 108. Second round finish over Jessica Andrade, 138, and then 134 against Jennifer Maia. So like tons of fantasy potential here for Valentina Shevchenko. I'd give her like an A+ rating if I had to. Whereas Alexa Grasso is strictly a value play. I don't think she's going to beat Valentina Shevchenko. She has really, really good hands. I don't think that's the style to beat Shevchenko, if I'm being honest. I don't think anybody can really outstrike Shevchenko. She's going to find her rhythm. She's going to start finding out which combinations work, and she's going to just have a solution to any problem that arises. I think Shevchenko can be beaten by anybody who can put her on her back and just, ride her out, win rounds, threaten her with submissions. We've seen Jennifer Maia do that in 1 round. We've seen Tyler Santos arguably win the previous matchup against Shevchenko by doing similar things. So I think stylistically it's Shevchenko's fight to lose, and I'm going to get to her plenty even at that 9,400 price tag.
Yeah, it's one of those things of when I was building cash lineups, it was tough for me not to put in Grasso just as a floor. I don't think Grasso is going to win this fight. I agree with everything what you said there. It really is going to take someone with a grappling base. But one of the things about Shevchenko is she does get off to slow starts. And so I could see where potentially Grasso could maybe, take the first and second round. She's coming back here. But it's, Shevchenko, I don't mind getting there because of the takedown upside that she does have in this matchup. I think that this is a matchup that's probably I think it's going to hit the fourth round. And, someone had asked the question, I wanted to find that question, which it was basically along the lines of, and this came from Ryan. He said, which main event is most likely optimal, Jones or Shevchenko? If they both go 25 minutes.
I'm going to say the price point of Jones and Gane.
Yeah, right? I mean, I would rather get to the Jones side of, if you're saying Jones and Shevchenko win, like this question states, to me, I would, because of the money I could save by rostering John Jones, allowing me to get to other people, because my cash core this week is Bo Nickal and John Jones, teaming them two together and then building out the rest of my lineup that way in cash. But I do see where Shevchenko could just murder this slate with just takedowns and a ton of control time.
Yeah, I mean, lovely stated. I absolutely agree with you. I can't wait to watch the fight. If everything's equal, right? We just had Alexa Grasso pick up a unanimous decision over Viviane Araujo. She scored 99. So let's say she had the exact same performance against Valentina Shevchenko, which, good luck. But let's say she did. She would have scored 69 points in a loss. So I don't foresee that happening. I think we need at least 40 on a card like this. I'm not projecting a losing fighter to be a part of it, but you never know. This is a fight I wouldn't stack. I can see it as far as getting different. It makes a unique build, but I wouldn't recommend it, to be honest.
Next up, we got Shine asking if you think it's going to go the full decision.
I have a sneaky suspicion that Shevchenko finds a submission. I think that she's going to be pounding on Alexa Grasso, and sometimes when people don't want to get pounded out, they give up their neck or they'll get submitted instead. So that's what I'm expecting. I feel like it's going to be like a rear naked choke for Valentina Shevchenko.
And if you look at Shevchenko wins via submission plus 225, I think if you even want to get crazy, Shevchenko wins round 4.
Yeah, I mean, I really like doing that, picking round props, and just if I think a fighter's going to win and I like them inside the distance, sometimes you can actually set yourself up for success by fading a first round finish and targeting the later rounds. I mean, all fighters that are training for these fights are accustomed to going, 3 5-minute rounds at least in training. So targeting second round and third round props, I would definitely recommend.
Let's move over to our next matchup. It's a welterweight matchup between Shavkat Rakhmonov and Geoff Neal. Shavkat Rakhmonov is $9,200 on DK, $20 over on FanDuel. Geoff Neal, $7,000 on DK, $10 on FanDuel. On the betting side, Rakhmonov is a 5.5 to 1 betting favorite in this one. I mean, look, we have all seen the talent that Shavkat Rakhmonov has. I think this is a nice step up in competition for him and Geoff Neal, but it's hard for me not to see Rakhmonov going out there and winning this one.
Yeah, I mean, when you have such an undefeated stud in Shavkat Rakhmonov, you better be damned that he's going to carry some popularity and some bias going into this betting line. Naturally, I don't like any lines that get inflated over 3 to 1, just because at the end of the day, it is an MMA fight. Shavkat Rakhmonov sitting there, -5 something. Geoff Neal floating around plus 400. If you are just a value player, I think that Geoff Neal picks aren't bad at all, because his best path to victory is by testing that chin of Shavkat Rakhmonov. Shavkat Rakhmonov regionally was dropped really, really bad and looked like he was en route to getting finished on the regional scene. He overcome that adversity, and he actually turned the tide en route to getting in mount and pounding out his adversaries. So it proved a lot that Rakhmonov can be put in a poor position, withstand that adversity and come out on top. But, the questions still arise, like, anybody can put anybody's lights out, and hands of steel Geoff Neal if he can do one thing well, it's that he can really test that chin of yours. He just has to be accurate enough and believe in it enough. The issue is that when people go up against Shavkat Rakhmonov, they are almost mesmerized at the fighter that they are standing across from and kind of mentally checked out before the fight even begins or while the fight's going. So they make a mistake. They get a little bit too wild, and Shavkat's well-roundedness, he capitalizes and puts him out, and is just such a prolific finisher that at 9,200, we're spoiled this week, guys. We really are. We are spoiled with the 9,000 options, and we're spoiled with this card. So I think that Shavkat Rakhmonov is going to be a very, very popular play for parlays. In addition to that, how could you not want to get to him on DFS, where against Alex Oliveira, 100 points, 98 against Michel Prazeres, 112 against Carlston Harris, and 111 against Neal Magny. I feel like a decision's coming one of these days. You know what I mean? Like, I know that he can knock out Geoff Neal. I know that he can submit Geoff Neal. He has the wrestling when he needs to use it. I really feel like a decision's coming one of these days, because if he keeps this crazy finish streak up, I mean, it's like breaking history. So I will sprinkle some money just because Rakhmonov wins by decision. I don't think that it's a bad play by any means, but sitting there at, plus 250, I'm okay with it. I am going to side with Shavkat Rakhmonov. I love the fight. Not in love with the line currently. I think that there is some value on Geoff Neal, but I do believe that Shavkat Rakhmonov is the real deal. So I'm going to be picking him to get another victory.
How about Rakhmonov wins via decision?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Plus 250, I love it. I don't hate it at all. Everybody's expecting another finish. Neal Magny was in the second round, 9:58. Michel Prazeres was in the second round, 7 minutes and 10 seconds. Like, Geoff Neal comes from a very calculated camp where he's going to try to minimize mistakes. You already know that. Saif Saud's going to make sure that he's going to minimize as many mistakes as possible, try to stretch this guy out into the third round, see how his gas tank is. I think Shavkat's going to answer all the questions that anybody has of him en route to another decision victory. So 9,200, give me Rakhmonov. Going to be a popular play, but rightfully so.
Get a couple of questions in here from the chat. First up, we got Matt saying, he goes, Neal is so underrated, but feels like he gets subbed. If he stands, Neal will outbox him.
Yeah, I mean, Matt, thanks for the support, Matt. He's always in here checking us out. We really appreciate it. Everybody checking us out, we appreciate you guys. I will say that Geoff Neal is underrated, and if he has a path to victory, it's by connecting with your chin. If Geoff Neal goes out there and pulls off the unthinkable and beats Shavkat Rakhmonov, like, think about what, like Stephen Thompson made Geoff Neal look like levels below him. You remember that fight? Everybody was on Geoff Neal. Geoff Neal was priced 8,400, and I sided with Stephen Thompson. I believe you did too. I'm not sure, but like, it was just a calculated, perfect performance, and stylistically, it was a nightmare for him. And styles make fights. Can't wait to see if Geoff Neal can execute the correct game plan to test Rakhmonov.
Mention this question, and we'll get into more of these 9,000 options as we get later on the show. Ryan says, how many 9K plus fires do you feel will be optimal this week? I mean, it's probably 2.
Yeah.
I mean, but then it ultimately just comes, if it's 3, that tells me we've got some very, high value fighters coming in and cashing.
Yeah. So if there's ever 3 9,000 options happening, 6,000 fighter broke the slate, or you have at least one losing fighter a part of the optimal lineup. So you need something weird to happen. I would say naturally 2, at least 1 9,000 fighter. I mean, we're spoiled with this top end this week. So I'm gonna say 1 is going to make it in, and I think it's going to be a high price target.
And Andrew saying fight time is at 8.5 minutes on Prize Picks if you think it goes to decision round 3. I will tell you this. We're going to talk about Prize Picks towards the end of the show. There are some Prize Picks plays that have really stuck out to me this week.
Interesting. Yeah, I wish I could play. I can't play on that platform, but I'm always here to help, and that's Jason's wheelhouse. He's killing it over there with the props.
I did see, because I got a marketing email yesterday, that No House Advantage basically has a free square on John Jones. I want to say it's on significant strikes landed.
How many?
Half.
Take the under. No, I mean, he should get that, at least with an eye poke. So.
The John Jones hater-ish in you. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm not a big John Jones guy. Sorry. I mean, I respect his skill set, but yeah, I'm not a John. There aren't too many fighters I've met in person that I've disliked, and he's atop that list.
Look, but you know this. You can't let emotion get into
Nope.
developing lineups.
No, not at all. I mean, just for me personally, because I don't care. I just want something to root. Yeah, I'm going to be going crazy on Ciryl Gane this week. But my recommendation is that John Jones is the safest or one of the safest plays on the slate, given takedown upside with the scoring system and giving 5-round nature and just his resume in general. So I'm going to be doing the opposite, but that's what I would recommend.
By the way, we'll note me and Pete will be back here tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be live for 1 hour leading up to UFC 285 to answer any last minute questions you have. Now, at the beginning of the show, I talked about, I truly believe that Gamrot and Turner is a key to taking down tournaments tomorrow. So Mateusz Gamrot is the favorite here, $8,600 on DK, $17 on FanDuel. For Jalin Turner, $7,600 on DK, $13 on FanDuel. That FanDuel salary is very interesting to me when it comes to Jalin Turner. But I mean, Pete, this is initially Jalin Turner was going to take on Dan Hooker. I was going to be all in, all chips in the center of the table on Jalin Turner. I thought that was a great stylistic matchup for him. He's got a much tougher opponent here in Mateusz Gamrot because we're going to find out how good is that takedown defense.
Oh yeah, it's going to get tested, and if it doesn't get tested, Jalin Turner should win this fight. So, there's a ton of times in fights where you expect a guy to shoot takedowns because that's his clear path to victory, and they get gun shy. Whether it's the feint of the knee, the threat of getting knocked out, whatever. It's not as easy as people think to close that gap and close that distance. That's why I like fights at the apex with the smaller cage, or getting your opponent behind that black line and pinning them, throwing combinations where their path to escaping is kind of limited. That's all important stuff. Doing things in the open mat, there's so much space, man. It feels like you're in the ocean. Like I remember I was fighting in Bellator's cage, and I'm like, dude, I will dance around everybody in this cage. Small regional shows, you feel trapped. You feel like you're fighting in a closet. You know what I mean? So I do think that the more complete fighter is clearly Mateusz Gamrot. Like he's a sensational grappler. Look what he's been doing. Look at who he's been fighting. If he can attempt takedowns on you, he's going to push that pace, and he breaks a ton of people with that pace. His scrambling ability is second to none. You see what he did against Arman Tsarukyan. I mean, the guy is just absolutely legit, and it goes to show you how legitimate Beneil Dariush is, guy who should be getting a title shot, and should have had several by now. The issue here is just the power of Jalin Turner versus the wrestling of Mateusz Gamrot. What comes first? I personally think that if Matt Frevola was able to close that gap, throw some big respectful shots at Jalin Turner en route to getting some takedowns, Frevola went 4 of 13 in the takedown department and had nearly 5 minutes of control time, 2 of 6 in round 1 with 2 minutes and 45 seconds of control time, 1 of 4 in round 2 with only 50 seconds, and then 1 of 3 in round 3 with 1 minute and 31. Turner likes to throw up guillotine chokes a lot and has some really, really sneaky submissions. So Mateusz Gamrot needs to be wise of that, because if he leaves his head on the outside, you could have a very powerful and very tricky Jalin Turner capture your neck and spoil the fight for you. Me personally, I'm just going to think that Mateusz Gamrot's scrambling ability and just fight IQ on the mat is going to result in him getting his hand raised here at 8,600. I really like this fight. And initially I was like, knee-jerk reaction. I'm like, I hope Gamrot's in shape, and I hope that, he's not 50% going into this fight, because Jalin Turner can't be slept on. He is just such a freak, sparring with huge guys, Luke Rockhold, everybody throughout his entire come up. And now we see he's on a 5-fight win streak. Josh Coulibaly knockout, submission over Brock Weaver, submission over Uros Medic, knockout over Jamie Malarkey, and a submission over Brad Riddell. I just think that all those fighters I mentioned are on the same, level of Mateusz Gamrot. So I got to go with Gamrot here.
Gamrot's one of those guys that I'm also going to be targeting in terms of whether we're talking about GPP or cash lines because of that grappling upside. And, Sean was asking about if it's a takedown city opportunity here for Gamrot. It's got to be, to me, that's his path to go out there. I mean, look, it's a step up in competition for Jalin Turner, and we've seen what Gamrot can do against the top competition. Sean over in the chat, he says, the way Turner loves to throw kicks and knees up the middle, I could see him catching Gamrot, shooting for takedowns. What do you think?
The best counter to a wrestler and to kind of get into their mind is just showing that knee up the middle. And they're like, oh shoot, you know what I mean? But like, you got to land it perfectly, because if you're throwing a knee to the body, I don't like the knee to the body, because the knee to the body can just result in a blast double. It's got to be a knee to the chin, and you have to be super accurate. You better hope that he lands it. Because if not, Gamrot's onto your hips and is taking you for a ride. In my opinion, this isn't a flag planting situation, because I am respecting Jalin Turner's skills, where I'm not going to lock button Mateusz Gamrot, where I might lock button somebody else we're going to get to. But yeah, this is a split your exposure, leaning towards Gamrot. Can't wait to actually watch the fight, though. Should be a great one.
Apparently, your friends are not with you on the whole Ciryl Gane.
We're half.
And
actually, it's like me and my buddy Dan. And I'll tell you what, I flipped. So all the people that I was originally with are kind of like throwing shade to me now, because after watching fight film, I'm like, bro, I don't know, man. Like, things don't always go as how people expect. And I know I was off on the Juliana Pena, Amanda Nunes. I was wrong. I should have had it on the first time, but I was too afraid to voice it. I'm not afraid to voice it and be wrong. So I'm going to be going Ciryl Gane. And here in this matchup, I'm going to go a Mateusz Gamrot. And can't wait to watch the fights with the boys.
Most favorable method of victory for Gamrot?
Decision.
Yeah, 3-round decision, a bunch of grappling. That to me is going to be the way. I mean, look, Pete, this is all you got to hope for. You better hope you don't lose 3 straight weeks in a row to me in the listener contest.
I know. Jason's on fire, man. I look like I'm a bum off the street. But I tell you what, I've been doing really well with GPPs, but more so than that, sports betting is just like, I've been absolutely killing it. So that's where I've been really, really making some profit. And live betting fights is so amazing. What did I live bet last week, Jason? I don't even know if I let you know. I was watching the fight, and then I'm like, seeing the odds. I'm like, that's not how I have this scored. And it was the second round just ended. And I'm like, this does not look good at all. And my prediction was wrong, but I threw money live down on the other fighter who still had crazy plus odds, and ended up completely working out for me. I was like, yeah, like my eyeballs were saying that is not how the odds should be reflected.
Mm-hmm. Was it Ode Osborne?
It was Ode Osborne. Good memory. Yeah, it was Ode Osborne. And I was just like, I had Charles Johnson. Like I thought that he was going to absolutely do work. And then I'm watching the fight. I'm like, he did not look like he had any momentum in that fight at all. So completely surprised me, but I was able to, kind of right my wrong and make some money.
Let's move over to our next matchup. It's going to be the opening fight of the pay-per-view. We got the UFC debut of Bo Nickal taking on Jamie Pickett. Of course, this matchup was supposed to take place back in December. Ends up getting delayed here till March. Bo Nickal, depending on where you're at in terms of the betting line, anywhere from a 14-1 to a 22-1 betting favorite. He is 9,600 on DK, 6,600 over there on 6,600 for Pickett over on FanDuel, $22 for Bo Nickal, $8 for Pickett. I'll tell you, Bo Nickal, I really like on FanDuel this week. I think that is a nice salary in terms of how I expect this one to go. I mean, look, Bo Nickal is the real deal. I mean, I've been following this guy since he was an amateur wrestler. I think this is a classic UFC stylistic matchup to set up here.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Lock button Bo Nickal. Lock button Bo Nickal. And you guys know I don't say lock a lot. The only issue with Bo is that he comes with a hefty price tag. We have seen fighters with less skill and, pay off. We had Mayra Bueno Silva. She was surrounded by excellent 9,000 options who kind of underperformed. And even at that 106 or 107 fantasy score, she was still required to be a part of the optimal lineup. I think the quick win bonus resides with Bo Nickal. I think that the tremendous takedown upside, more so than anything we've really ever seen, Hamza Chimaev, Colby Covington, Kamaru Usman type of levels, if Pickett's so tough, the threat of the takedown to open up the striking and the submission skills for Bo Nickal. I think that this kid is absolutely legitimate. I would probably pick him to beat several people within the rankings already. I just don't want him to be rushed too early, similar to how a lot of prospects are rushed over in Bellator. And in Bellator, we see a lot of these prospects kind of, they fail a little bit because they just get brought in too early, or they have a couple of spectacular performances, and next thing you know, they're fighting some legitimate guys. Like, I don't want to see Bo Nickal, Robert Whitaker, or something next. And you know what I mean? Like, let's take it slow. Let's get him to get like 6 fights under him total, and then that's where we can start like chopping at the top 5. I think he has to get through Jamie Pickett. Jamie Pickett is not going to be a guy that I am getting to at all. 0% exposure for me this week. I just don't see him doing anything outside of landing some Hail Mary knockout, which, again, I don't see happening. I just don't see any path to victory for him. I know a buddy of mine just sees crazy value, and he's like, Jamie Pickett's gonna pull off this Bellator type of train derailment of Bo Nickal, and I just don't see it. Give me Bo Nickal, 9,600. I'm going to get every combination I can with Bo Nickal just because I know a ton of people are afraid of that price tag.
And the prop bets are just insane when you look at here. If you looked at inside the distance, Bo Nickal went inside distance. Now, there's some books that don't have a number up yet. The books that do, minus 704, minus 549, minus 590, minus 775. It is absolutely crazy. I think the question really becomes is, I think from a betting perspective, I'm looking at that Bo wins by either TKO, KO, or submission prop. Outside of that, I mean, you can't touch the money line on this one. You can't.
No, it's ridiculous, man. I mean, unless you got Drake money, you ain't touching the money line. And I will say that I think Bo Nickal gets this done any way he wants. In the media, he mentioned that he wanted a first round finish. So first round finish sits about minus 200. It's absolutely insane. I think Romanov over Chase Sherman had similar inside the distance odds. Somebody in chat kind of mentioned it. Thank you for that. But I don't really recall many times seeing a fighter with minus 650, minus 700 inside the distance. This is ridiculous. But rightfully so. I'm going to get to every combination of Bo Nickal. I hope I'm right. I hope Pickett's tough. I either hope Pickett gets washed really early or he gets completely ragdolled en route to a crazy score. So, yeah, Bo Nickal significantly.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's very evident. The UFC truly believes they have a potential star here in Bo Nickal, and that's why he's been put in this spot. There's a reason he's been put in the first fight on pay-per-view of John Jones pay-per-view. This is a way for the UFC to showcase him. I think now another critical matchup in terms of GPP lines, I do believe, is our featured preliminary bout between Cody Garbrandt and Trevin Jones. Trevin Jones stepped up here on short notice to take this one. Of course, he is the betting underdog. In this one, he is plus 155, minus 180 for Cody Garbrandt. Garbrandt, 8,500 on DK, $16 on FanDuel. Jones, 7,700 on DK, $14 on FanDuel. FanDuel, I like the price on both these guys. Cody Garbrandt, I mentioned earlier on the show where he was extremely open about how his life was in shambles leading into his last fight. And, this is, look, there is volatility on both sides of this equation, Pete. I mean, you can't trust the chin of Cody Garbrandt. You just can't.
No. Yeah, no love. More like no trust. I got no trust in my man. I like Cody No Love. The days of me recommending him for a play are over. I think that he has fallen from greatness. And with all due respect, I think that he needs to be in like the most matchups against grapplers because I don't want to see him get knocked out. I really don't. And that chin is so susceptible to taking big shots. Like, I think him against Hani Yaya, like stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, go up against these grappling aces who have limited striking where you can just kind of just put on a performance. Technically, he's better than Trevin Jones. Like, he is fantastic technically. He's probably one of these guys in the gym where it's completely unheard of like, man, this kid is so good. He hits the pads great. He spars great. He can wrestle. He can do it all. I just think, like, as far as fight IQ, there's like zero fight IQ and not like no necessary adjustments. Let me go through this with you. And this is kind of what I was kind of breaking down to my boy Matt earlier this morning. TJ Dillashaw, a lot on the line in their first encounter. Tons of emotion. Drop TJ Dillashaw. He is so good offensively. He can go out there and knock out Trevin Jones or pick him apart for 15 minutes and make it look easy. Got into a firefight with TJ Dillashaw. Got clipped with a shot. Then switch stance, right hook, ends his night. Second time around, TJ Dillashaw starts trading right hands, gets into a firefight again, gets hit with a right hand, knockout. Pedro Munoz, doing well. Having some trouble, coming back, doing really well. You saw he kind of just got pissed off, started trading right hands, trading punches back and forth, gets knocked out by a right hand. Surprisingly, lost the decision to Rob Font and didn't get knocked out in that. Kai Kara France dropping down a weight class, gets hit with a right hand. If Trevin Jones has anything good about his game, is that he has a significantly strong right hand. In being a southpaw, he can pump that jab really strong, and it's kind of like a power jab. But his sneaky shovel hook or just his traditional right hook, his lead right hook, is so sneaky. It knocked out Timur Valiev. It knocked out Mario Batista. He ended up losing 3 fights and is on a 3-fight losing streak to Syed Yokub Kakramanov, who is an absolute stud. So the fact that he went 3 rounds with him before getting submitted tells a lot about, like, Trevin Jones. He's live and he's going to wrestle also. And then turning around against Javid Bashrat and Raoni Barcelos. Technically, Trevin Jones should get picked apart here against Cody Garbrandt. But I'm telling you, I see Trevin Jones out of Fortis MMA now. They know everything that I'm saying right now. They are very, very smart. Saif Saud is very, very smart. He's going to see that Cody Garbrandt, for whatever reason, whether it's peripherals or not, or just lack of striking defense on that lead side, gets hit with every right hand. I'm picking Trevin Jones to beat Cody Garbrandt here, and I would have never guessed I would say those words because Cody Garbrandt should style on Trevin Jones. He could style on him until he gets hit with a right hand and it's over. Or Cody could actually make this look like a complete mismatch as it should be. But I'm going to go with Trevin Jones. How can I bet against an underdog who has a crazy power in his right hand against a guy who gets hit with every right hand and finished?
So clearly you like the Trevin Jones plus 325 to win by TKO KO.
I sure do. I sure do. And I hate to say that because I want Cody Garbrandt to win. But, like, it's either I'm going to just bet against him or I'm not going to bet at all. You know what I mean? Like, I have to go with Trevin Jones by KO.
Yeah. I think Roman in the chat, he says poor Saeed was cut from the UFC. I think he's talking about Saeed Yokub. More of that story. Let's just say that. More of that story.
Yeah, I must have missed that. I didn't see that at all. So,
yeah. The UFC basically decided they didn't want to be in his business anymore.
Interesting. He's so talented too.
Yeah. I would, based on some things I heard, I'd be surprised if we see him back in the UFC anytime soon.
Yeah. Didn't he just, like, mop the floor with Ronnie Lawrence too, who's an absolute wrestling stud too? Like, I'm pretty sure
I want to say he's 2-1 in the UFC, I want to say.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I picked him over, unless I could just completely made that up, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's based on some things I heard. I would be surprised if you see him back in the UFC anytime soon. Look, Cody Garbrandt, here's the unfortunate part about Cody. You know where he's likely to end up at some point, right?
Bare knuckle.
Yep.
And it's the worst decision too, because, like, all these guys chasing money.
The Rockhold one.
Yeah.
Are there people not around Luke that care about him?
I mean, he had a really, really good fight against Paulo Costa. Like, a really, really good fight. So it's just different. You know what I mean? It's a different, I don't even like calling it a sport. It's just a different thing, and I don't like seeing these guys at the tail end of the career. They built their entire business off of retired fighters or fighters that got washed out of promotion. So it's quite sad.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also, maybe it's very telling with how much Scott Coker has a relationship with AKA, and we know the history with Luke Rockhold, that, maybe it's just simply Scott said, hey, I don't want to pay that much money for you. I mean, I just think it's very interesting. But yeah, about a 0.01% chance that I would buy a $50 bare knuckle pay-per-view.
All right. Yeah, good. Me either.
Let's move over. Next up, we got a middleweight matchup here. Derek Brunson and Dricus Du Plessis, 7,500 for Derek Brunson, 8,700 for Du Plessis, 17 and 13 respectively over there on the FanDuel side of the equation. This is my concern with this matchup, Pete, is like, I don't really trust either one of these guys as gas tank. But these, even though Derek Brunson is much older, he's 39 years old, but these are the type of fights he wins, though.
Yeah, man. Blonde Brunson's a problem, and he is a true problem. Brunson's been through a lot within his career, 14-6 in the UFC. Absolute stud. Used to just throw down, forget that he was a wrestler. Then some matchups, he remembers he's a wrestler, and he ragdolls his opposition. We've seen Brunson spoil the party for a ton of prospects and a ton of fighters looking to get right. Darren Till, Kevin Holland, Emin Shabazian, like a ton of fighters that the UFC, whether they were trying to build a name off of Derek Brunson or not, he pulls out some of these crazy underdog values. I mean, think about it. Till, he was 7,400 underdog. Kevin Holland, 7,800 underdog. Emin Shabazian, 7,100 underdog. Ian Heinisch, 7,400 underdog. Came through in all those that I just mentioned. I do think that his best path to victory is clearly by testing the takedown defense of Dricus du Plessis. I think that regionally, Dricus du Plessis has fantastic submission skills, some pretty sneaky chokes, is able to take the back pretty well, threaten the neck. I love people who hunt the neck. It's my favorite thing personally to do, and I love it when people do the same. Inside the UFC, he hasn't really been able to do that. He only defended one takedown, and that was against Brad Tavares. We have Darren Till. In that Darren Till matchup, he went 6 of 6 in the takedown department. I do think that this is an intriguing matchup, and for me, I circled this fight. I think that Dricus du Plessis is going to be the side that I lean towards. I think the power, he can get it done. He can hurt Brunson on the feet. Brunson's been knocked out several times, and Brunson really leaves his neck out there. So I actually think that Brunson can really walk into a submission loss, something that a lot of people aren't necessarily expecting. So I'm going to project a club and sub for Dricus du Plessis here at 8,700. But as far as underdogs that can really fight for your money, Derek Brunson's a guy with a legitimate resume to go out there and fight for your dollar.
Yeah, to me, but the one concern to have on Derek Brunson is he has a massive tendency to rush in with his chin straight up in the air.
Yep.
And that would be a concern for me. But like when you're looking at, when you're going through and you're highlighting underdogs to potentially target, when you look at that DraftKings scoring system, you have to look at Derek Brunson if he's able to utilize his takedown defense there. Let's see. A question here from Boofy says, Dupuis round 2 versus Till was a big concern. Seemed totally gassed from holding Till and punching. We saw that, his last fight. Yeah, we've seen that from Duplessis a couple of times. Also, man asking what happened to Ian Heinisch. I want to say Ian... I don't think he's been released from the UFC. I think he's still in the UFC. I want to say it was concussion related. I want to say.
Interesting.
I saw a note about it a couple of weeks ago. He did an interview where he was talking about getting ready to come back, and it was something in relation to health was the reason that he's been kind of away.
Prioritizing health is excellent. You know what I mean? We see Darren Till doing the same thing, looking to get right. Probably hasn't been right for some time now, and that's the issue. Is like you're like, man, they're trying to chase success because we all know we have a short window of opportunity to go out there and get it done. But like for me, the Dricus du Plessis gassing is something I am somewhat worried about. But to see the output and just anybody in the UFC right there, they have that type of round 1 output trying to finish your opponent for 5 straight minutes. I think everybody's going to gas. We did see him somewhat catch a second wind in the 3rd round. He looked towards the second as well, but he's the type of guy that looks gassed all the time. You know what I mean? Like breathes with his mouth open, and he looks tired. But I do think that he's talented enough in the striking and submission wise to get this done over Derek Brunson. So I'm going to lean towards du Plessis here at 8,700.
Next up, we got a female matchup between Viviane Araujo and Amanda Ribas. 7,900 for Araujo, 8,300 for Ribas. Ribas $16 on $16 on FanDuel, $15 for Araujo. Amanda Ribas is a slight betting favorite in this one, minus 120. To me, Pete, this is, can Araujo keep this fight on the feet?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. And can she land that big right hand or land any power shots? Because we have seen Amanda Ribas a little susceptible to power shots, if I'm being honest. Even regionally, we've seen her get hurt. Marina Rodriguez knocked her out, but I think that she doesn't wear damage as well as some other fighters. So I think that Amanda Hebos's best path to victory is just being the better, well-rounded mixed martial artist every time she's out there. Incorporating takedowns is a huge, huge part of her game. We saw her even incorporate some takedowns and stay out of harm's way against Mackenzie Dern, like 2 of 2 in the takedown department. She can defend takedowns if you are looking to initiate it. She has excellent judo as well. She can really toss you on your head. And she can throw some high volume. It's really just the chin. I thought that Amanda Hebos, when she beat Mackenzie Dern, I'm like, hold up, who the hell is this girl? And then I see her pick up another victory of Rana Marcos and Paige Van Zant. I'm like, yeah, this girl is going to be fighting for the title. Hasn't really gone quite like that. I do think that Amanda Hebos has the higher upside than Viviane Araujo. But with all that being said, tread carefully here because Araujo has some sneaky, sneaky power. I don't think that she's going to have the grappling edge, even though she can incorporate takedowns in her own right. It's clear to me that Amanda Hebos is the better grappler. So I'm going to side with her at 8,300. Just has to avoid the big shot.
Yeah, that's to me. I mean, it's overall. I mean, like, look, when you look at the prop bets, this tells you what Vegas thinks. Fight goes to decision minus 240, plus 175 Araujo to win via decision, plus 150 Hebos to win via decision.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's outside of something wild to happen, I am expecting it to go the distance. They're both pretty tough. We just saw Hebos go 3 rounds in a split decision. Should have possibly won that over Caitlin Chukagian. And when we did see Viviane Araujo go 5 rounds against Alexa Grasso. So I am expecting a decision for Amanda Hebos here at 8,300.
Just kind of searching Twitter to see if we have any news. We got some news.
Oh boy, what?
Geoff Neal has missed weight by 4 pounds.
Ooh. Oh, well, I tell you what, he did seem a little irritated when people were asking him about his injury. And we do know that this original matchup was kind of pushed back because of an initial injury. What that tells me, and I don't know anything in his camp at all, but let's say like you shed most of your weight by running. If you have a knee injury, you're not going to be running a lot. So I think it could be injury related. I don't necessarily think it's strategic, but 4 pounds, huh? Interesting.
Yeah, and when you miss weight by that kind of weight, you could be giving up a lot more than 20% of your purse.
Yeah, I mean, what are we asking for if somebody does that to us? I'm thinking more towards 40.
Oh, that's where negotiations start.
I love that, Jason. Yes, I love that.
That's where the negotiation. You know who I really learned that from?
Who
was Gaethje's coach?
Trevor Whitman.
Trevor Whitman, yeah.
Wow, I love it, man.
Yeah, it was when Gaethje was fighting Melvin Guillard. So it was here. It's here in Tampa, and Guillard. I mean, he missed weight, 10 pounds, I think it was, something like that.
Yeah.
And so, he's like, yeah, we're starting negotiation at 50%.
Wow.
And Guillard took it, 50%.
Yeah. That's kind of sad how fighters are just, they're like, well, I was really banking on getting any money, so I have money out because of training and my coaches and all that. So it's like, it's quite sad what happened to Guillard. I haven't even looked at his record, but I know the last time I looked at it, it was not pretty because he just started going downhill, spiraling fast against all fights, all promotions.
He was actually getting turned down for licenses. Bare Knuckle was trying to book him a fight.
That's what it was.
And basically there was a major pushback for him not to get licensed. But yeah, that's one of those things of, miss weight. That's where, if you have good representation around you, that just doesn't take 20%, and I think it does depend on how much of a weight miss it is. Like if it's 1 pound, all right, 20%. But when you start talking 4, 5 and up, yeah, that number, that negotiation starts at a much higher number. But like I was listening to an interview with Joe Selecki, and I'm actually talking to Joe after the show, And he was doing this interview where he was talking about where he lost a fight, and he's like, man, I've been away from my family. He goes, I've been training. He's like, I just need a payday. And that's the unfortunate part of the fight business is, when you do all that, and he's expecting his second child here in the next couple of weeks, and it's the unfortunate part of this business where you lose a fight and you're just like, man, you're just hoping they can find somebody else so you can actually get in there.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if we had like salaries, right? Imagine like we didn't have to worry, like we could just train all the time. We knew that at the end of the year we were making X amount of money. We don't get paid unless we fight. So we got to make weight, and then we got to perform, and we got to hope that everything on the opposite side, our opponents, come through as well. So there's so much riding on each fight to fight. You see all these guys. I think AJ Fletcher a couple weeks ago was talking about how he had like $50 in his bank account. Like that is so sad, and that's completely absurd to me.
I had an interview with Malik Lewis, who fought on the Contender Series last year, and he lost. And so he's just coming off a title win on the regional scene, and he wasn't trying to make excuses, but he's like, man, I had a lot of injuries heading into that Contender Series fight. He goes, but it was a Contender Series. And I said, if that was a regional fight, do you pull out? And he's like, yeah, I probably do.
Yeah, of course you do. You know what I mean? Like circumstances mean everything. And when Dana White's there, like you got people taking fights they shouldn't be taking for a card coming up here in New Hampshire because they know Dana White's going to be in the building. You know what I mean? So it's just like anything to impress the boss.
Yeah. I know there's a faction up there in the Northeast saying exactly happy with the UFC right now.
Yeah.
Because a couple of guys lost out on an opportunity to be on the Ultimate Fighter because of and we're going to talk about, he's not Northeast, but there is a fighter on this card that was supposed to be on the Ultimate Fighter, but he's fighting on this card now. So we'll get into that a little bit later on. Let's go over our next matchup. We got Julian Marquez taking on Marc-Andre Barriault. This is your favorite fight of the week, the 8,200, 8,000 fight. Barriault is your 8,200 fighter, 8,000 for Marquez. Marquez 15 on FanDuel, $16 over there on for Barriault. And Barriault is a minus 150 betting favorite, plus 125. Julian Marquez now training at Factory X. Of course, he had to make a gym change there after what happened at Glory. So this is now the third gym that Marquez has probably been in the last 3-4 years.
Don't like that.
Well, he was initially at Glory. Then he left Glory. This is several years ago. Left Glory, went to Vegas, was at, I'm pretty sure it was Syndicate. I know how much you love Syndicate. I'm pretty sure it was Syndicate. Then he went back home to Glory. Then we all know what happened with Glory. Then he has now ended up at Factory X, which is not really a surprise. That's where several fighters who were at Glory have ended up at Factory X.
Yeah, I mean, this is usually my nightmare salary range. And last week I had to take a victory lap because Jordan Levitt came through. And, he's not some fantastic striker by any means, but if you land a knee to somebody's chin, most of the time they're going to go down from it. And, he pulled it out for us last week. So I was very, very happy that I was on the correct side of it. I still recommend people completely ignore me in this salary range, but for me, I'm leaning towards Marc-Andre Barriault, if I'm being honest. More consistency with his camp. He's out of Kill Cliff FC. I really love that room. If you go and you search through their social media, there are names everywhere scattered throughout. Top end of Bellator, even in the UFC, big names, veterans, young guys coming through. I think that the list goes on and on for who's training down there with Greg Jones, Henry Hooft, a part of Kill Cliff FC, formerly known as Sanford MMA. Julian Marquez is a guy who's very, very underwhelming in a lot of his fights and has had to really, light a fire underneath him and pull out victories from the jaws of defeat. Maki Pitolo was kind of like putting the work on him. And then I believe James Krause really, really dragged Julian Marquez through the mud and was like, all right, dude, like you really need to get a finish here or else we're going to walk away with a loss. And came at, 4:17 of round 3 where he was able to pick up a victory and Maki Pitolo kind of took him down, rinse and repeat, and just outworked Julian Marquez. Marquez has some sneaky power. We saw him, get a victory over Phil Hawes on the Contender some time ago. I know that he's coming off a devastating knockout to Gregory Rodriguez, and I don't necessarily know how healed he is, but I do love the timeline. That was back in June of 2022 against Gregory Rodriguez, but the inconsistencies of not being a part of a strong camp. I mean, Factory X is a strong camp, yes, but it takes a little bit for an adjustment period. And Marc-Andre Barriault, I do think, is a guy who's on paper looks like he should lose this fight, but I do think that he's kind of been in some tough matchups. I mean, Anthony Hernandez is a stud. Chidi and Jaquan, he's a dangerous striker. Jin Young Park is solid. Christoph Jocko. I mean, the list is tough. He did take Jocko to a split decision back in 2019. I'm going to side with Marc-Andre Barriault. I think he finds a way to put together a more complete performance and avoid the damaging power of Marquez and the sneaky submissions en route to a decision. So give me Marc-Andre Barriault.
Yeah, this is I think it's a little high volatility in terms of this one.
Yeah.
What does the change in training to Factory X under Marc Montoya mean for Julian Marquez? This is another fight that, God, I hate to say that you probably got to circle as a potential priority fight, but
See, I feel like it's somewhat of a snoozer, if I'm being honest. I think that they are going to be like sparring each other. I could be wrong, but I don't really love the work rate of Julian Marquez. I think it's quite underwhelming, landing like between 40, 50 significant strikes. Marc-Andre Barriault kind of doing similar, not crazy accuracy rating. So I'm probably going to get away from this a little bit. And normally it's tough to get away from because of the salary. But the way I'm looking at ownership, I'm okay with getting away from it, if I'm being honest. I'm either going to be slightly below or just kind of just pivot elsewhere. I might want to save some money and go to like a Ciryl Gane or even a Viviane Araujo. I think there's some sneaky spots surrounding those salaries.
The UFC just announced a couple of minutes ago that the Neal Rakhmonov fight will continue. It'll be a catchweight matchup, and Geoff Neal has forfeited 30% of his purse. He's one of two fighters to miss weight on this card. The other being Mana Martinez. We'll talk about that matchup here in a little bit. That fight is still going on. That'll also be a catchweight, as Mana Martinez has been fined 30% for missing weight for his matchup. Let's move over to the next fight. We got Ian Garry taking on Song Kenan. 9,300 for Ian Garry, 6,900 for Kenan, 21 for Garry over there on FanDuel, 9 for Kenan, and Ian Garry is a minus 700 betting favorite. Which take, Pete?
I love Ian Garry. I think that Ian Garry is really, really good. I don't think that there's like too much of fading Ian Garry, whereas like Paddy Pimblett, I'm probably going to fade him his next matchup. I really will. Especially if he's going up against somebody who has a striking advantage, which most people do. And if they can defend the takedown, then I really, really like a lot of people over Paddy Pimblett. Ian Garry is pretty well-rounded, if I'm being honest. Like, I was sleeping on his hands a little bit. And I know that for this camp, he worked extensively with Liam Batko Harrison a lot, who is one of the best kickboxers of all time. Just very, very highly touted, tough, powerful guy with devastating combinations. And Ian Garry looked so crisp on the pads. It was crazy. I think that the X factor that he brings into most of these fights is his grappling. Like, excellent grappling, very good throws, good judo throws, good submissions. And I think he's mean. I listened to an interview with him, and he's like a stone cold killer. And like you need that mentality in fighting. Some people are like, he's trying too hard. I just really think that this is a guy who's hungry to climb the rankings. He's surrounded by a good team, Killcliff FC as well. So like he's getting in talented sparring sessions, good grappling sessions. He's a big guy for the welterweight division. He fills his frame really well. Outside of Song Kenan landing a powerful shot, I think Ian Garry completely outclasses Song Kenan en route to a high score. So Ian Garry, 109 against Jordan Williams. That's the fight I took a lot from and said, he's eating shots from Jordan Williams, whether it was octagon jitters or whatnot. I'm not too sure of this kid. So then I was a little hesitant. Still picked him against Darian Weeks. Wasn't a good performance. He scored 61. Gabe Green, I'm like, all right, here's our guy. Gabe Green's going to do it. Gabe Green's going to go in there, throw powerful combinations, look to take him down. He's going to just come. He might land a big shot and knock out Ian Garry. Ian Garry's hands were phenomenal. He picked Gabe Green apart. He lit him up like a Christmas tree. Threw 193 significant strikes, landed 116. I think something similar is going to happen, but I don't think Song Kenan is going to take that much damage. I think he's going to get knocked out or submitted. So I like Ian Garry inside the distance here. But outside of a big right hand, big powerful shot, I don't see Song Kenan winning. But it is MMA at the end of the day. So I will sprinkle a little song Kenan, but I'm pretty confident Ian Garry gets this done and has a solid score.
I mentioned it earlier on the show. I think there's going to come a point where we got to fade Ian Garry. I don't know if this is the spot, but I do have concerns about Song Kenan coming out there and just throwing some bombs. What we saw with Jordan Williams, and if you go back to that Jordan Williams fight, I think a little bit of bad IQ there by Jordan Williams there at the end of the first round ultimately cost him that one. I think I was like you, Ian Garry coming in. My thoughts were how high the ceiling was, and I just don't think he's delivered the way I expected him to, and that's a concern for me.
Gabe Green fight though, like that last one, I was like, am I wrong on my analysis with this kid? Because I was hesitant. You know what I mean? Like I don't really throw out the word prospect too much or plant my flag behind some certain fighters unless I am confident that they can just torch through people. Tom Aspinall, Hamzat Chimaev, Jack Della Maddalena, Aaron Blanchfield. Like those are fighters I've planted my flag behind. Even Romanov. Ian Garry is not one of those guys that I planted my flag and said, yeah, this kid's it.
Did I see Romanov got booked against is it Volkov?
Yeah, I'm still on. I'm a little unsure about that. I think I might be going Volkov, man. I don't trust Romanov's cardio.
Yeah, that's definitely an issue there. Next up, we got Mana Martinez. Of course, I just mentioned he did miss weight, but this fight is going to go forward. He missed weight by 2 pounds as he takes on Cameron Salmon. Salmon 8,800, 7,400 for Mana, 19 and 11 respectively over there, and Cameron is a minus 260 betting favorite, Pete.
Yeah, I mean, like Mana Martinez is a guy who a lot of people talk about how good he is in training. When I watch his fights, I just really don't see it. I feel like he's losing a large majority of them, but he lands a big shot and he gets back into the fight. Loses majority of the minutes, lands a big shot, gets back into it. And if you can take the shot, you're probably going to beat him because you're going to be able to outwork him or take him down en route to, getting a decision victory. If you have a poor chin, I think Mana Martinez is going to expose it. I do think that Cameron Simon is pretty green, but he's very talented. With me even saying that, his combinations he landed against Steven Kozlov, even though Kozlov took him down, and is a very, very good pressure wrestler and grappler. We had Cameron Simon, withstand that, come back, able to put together some excellent combinations and finish Steven Kozlov en route to a 118 performance. And if you think about it, he didn't really do much until the flurry where he was just starting to reverse. He had 6 reversals. So that really racked up that score. He landed 53 significant strikes. He didn't land any takedowns, but it's just how he went out there and put together a finish. He scored 118 for a 3rd round finish. And basically in rounds 1 and 2, there wasn't much. So I think that the upside is tremendous for Cameron Simon against a guy who is okay in Mana Martinez. Simon's able to, he's hittable, but I can say the same thing about Mana Martinez. And the more well-rounded of the two is Cameron Simon. So I'm not going to, talk you away from an underdog Mana Martinez, like landing a knockout shot. I'll get to him a little bit, not going to ignore it, but I actually am picking Cameron Simon to get another victory inside the UFC. I think the future is bright for this kid for the division.
Mana Martinez is also another former Glory fighter. He is back training home in Houston, where he had been training. They've built a nice little team there in Houston. Him, Yanez, Rafael Stotts is in Houston now. So they've built a nice little team there, and I know they've kind of done some cross-training at some other gyms as well. Next up, we got a female matchup. We got Jessica Penne taking on Tabitha Ricci. Ricci, 8,900, 7,300 for Penne. 18 for Ricci on FanDuel, $11 over there for Penne. A minus 300 betting favorite for Tabitha Ricci. Pete, 8,900. This is kind of in that salary range where you start to for me at least, that's where I start looking at ownership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you. Can I blow your mind right now? Jessica Penne, Emily Ducote, Karolina Kovacevic, Lupi Godinez, Daniel Taylor, Jessica Andrade, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, Irina Marcos. That's who she's fought inside the UFC. She's 3-4 in the UFC. She has only attempted 1 submission inside the UFC, 1 recorded submission. That, when I saw that stat, it completely blew my mind. And that was against Karolina Kovacevic. This is a fighter who's renowned to have some pretty solid jiu-jitsu, and that's what everybody says. Like Penne is a very strong grappler. I think that she's a solid grappler. I think she could flow a little bit, but I don't find her to be a dangerous grappler. And she's too comfortable being on her back. And not, if you're going to be on your back, at least have a crazy guard. Throw up arm bars, throw up triangles, threaten with submissions. Hell, go even for an omoplata, whether you just use it for a sweep or actually going for the submission. She just hasn't done it. And now she's in her 40s. So, I mean, if she's not 40, she's damn near 40. So 7,300 outside of armbar from guard. I just think she gets completely outworked by Tabitha Ricci, who throws at a high volume, wrestles at a significantly high volume. It's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. Went 5 of 11 in the takedown department against Maria Oliveira, 5 of 10 against Poliana Viana. I think Tabitha Ricci is going to have to be careful. Obviously, this is the biggest name that she's fought, Jessica Penne. I just think that it's Tabitha Ricci's time. I think it's Tabitha Ricci's time, and I'm going to be doing the same thing as you, like kind of paying attention to this ownership, seeing if things fluctuate a little bit, because I'd have to go a little bit more aggressive on her in hopes that she can really get it done, whether it's Takedown City or en route to a finish. That would be a tremendous feather in Tabitha Ricci's cap.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, we kind of always, I mean, obviously we're all going to look at, those fighters that are above, that range, the above, right underneath that 9,000 range, maybe find a little bit of a value there. Let's move next up. We got Damon Blackshear taking on Farid Basharat. Basharat 9,100, 7,100 for Blackshear. Overall on the FanDuel side of the equation, $19 for Basharat and $10 for Blackshear. Basharat is approaching a 5-1 betting favorite, Pete.
Careful with this fight. I think that Farid Basharat's very good. I think that he is very, very good, but do not sleep on Damon Blackshear at all. Comes from a solid camp. Jackson Wink, pretty talented wrestler. I actually have always thought that Youssef Zalal is solid. Like, I don't think that Youssef Zalal is a bad fighter by any means. I think that he has pretty good striking, tricky footwork, can incorporate wrestling and scramble pretty well. I thought for a short notice replacement, Damon Blackshear did pretty well. Went 1 of 5 in the takedown department, but what these metrics don't show, he had 2 nice reversals, 1 submission attempt, is his ability to take the back of a lot of his opponents. He's able to, threaten with submissions, and I think he's going to have to be relentless here against Farid Basharat. There's always the question, when we have brothers inside the UFC, who's the better brother? I don't know to this point. I think that there's clearly more to look for and more to reside with Javid Basharat than there is with Farid, who's making his UFC debut. I think only time will tell who's the better UFC fighter. I hold Javid Basharat in pretty high regard. Mm-hmm. I know that Farid is pretty good as well. He looked good on the Contender Series. I think he's going to be able to get it done. He is training with some talented guys, Marab in Vegas, Amir Albazi. Like, there's several guys that he's working with. He obviously works with his brother as well. That room is super, super talented at Extreme Couture. So I think he's going to be ready. I think his striking is and how dynamic he is gives him the edge in this matchup. I'm just not in love with the odds. You know what I mean? Like I just think it's a little bit too rich for a guy making his UFC debut. I think that he's very, very skilled. But if you go strength of schedule and you look at each of these fighters under a microscope, you have Damon Blackshear fighting more notable names, stronger adversaries, where Farid Basharat's in some pretty matchups to make him look a little bit better and a little bit more appealing to the likes of Dana White or a high promotion. So I'm still going to go with Farid Basharat, but be careful. I might actually get a little bit more aggressive with Damon Blackshear here than the public.
Mm-hmm. No, I get you. I mean, and I think that's once again kind of looking at the ownership. And of course, if you want to show your support here for what me and Peter are doing here, our friends over there at Stochastic got an offer for you. Just go into the description below and you can take advantage of that offer. And then when you hit that link and you take advantage of that deal they have, that does financially benefit myself and Pete. So we do appreciate that. Of course, if you could share this with your friends and let them know that this is where you can catch Pete and I every week here. We will be here tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, for a 1-hour Q&A to fill out any questions you may have as you're developing those lineups there. Now, our first fight of the night features a man that was actually supposed to be on the Ultimate Fighter, PFL vet and Razabov taking on Esteban here. Razabov 9,000, 7,200 for Esteban. Esteban is a plus 220 betting underdog. And, Pete, more times than not, even though I hate getting to the first fight of the night, this fight usually does, more times than not, it does end up optimal.
Yeah, I think you've kind of gotten away from that rule. There was a long time.
I have.
Yeah, you didn't really get to the first fight of the night, and I think that we have embraced the volatility a little bit, especially, with how we've gotten better with playing DFS and playing game theory as well. So I do think that Loic Rajabov is the clear favorite here. He was one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to win the PFL tournament. He was very good. He is very good. He incorporates some very good wrestling, throws thunderous hands as well. I think the one question mark and asterisk is always his gas tank. And the fact that this is on short notice, but this is a guy who was supposed to be an alternate on the Ultimate Fighter, or was supposed to be a part of the Ultimate Fighter. So you would like to think, and from everything I was trying to find on social media, tagged photos and all that, he's been training. So he should be prepared. But cutting weight is something we can't really put our finger on. He could be in shape, but he could not be able to shed the pounds as easily as some other fighters, you know what I mean, who had a full camp. So I'm not going to get away from Esteban Ribovic here. I think that Ribovic is the clear superior finisher of the two. Hasn't fought notable names, hasn't fought in a large promotion, hasn't really been tested. Much of an early first round and second round finisher. The longer this fight goes, I would like to think that Loic Rajabov's just a little bit too much and more well-rounded than Esteban Ribovic, who has thunderous power in his hooks. So, yeah, I mean, outside of Rajabov gassing, which is something that I really wouldn't bank on or know of, I think that Loic Rajabov here gets a decision win. I'm not going to say fade this fight, but I just have a feeling it's going to go the distance. It's not really going to result in the best DFS score. I hope I'm not wrong, but as far as like 9,000 options, I'm not really inclined to pick a guy in Loic Rajabov at 9,000 over like an Ian Garry, Valentina Shevchenko, a Bo Nickal, Shavkat Rakhmonov, hell, even a Farid Basharat. You know what I mean? Like there's some appealing 9,000 options, and I can't wait to see what the optimal lineup is. I think it's going to be quite unique. But yeah, I'm going to be a little bit underweight to Rajabov here in hopes that he can get a decision win, but not break the slate.
Of course, we're going to get into your questions here in a moment. Let's get into our straight up fight picks here. Pete, I think everyone knows where we're going on the main event.
Oh, yeah, baby. Let's go Ciryl Gane. I'm going Ciryl Gane. I'm being different today.
Give me John Jones.
Okay.
Co-main event, Shevchenko. I was on Rakhmonov before the weight miss, but even more on Rakhmonov at this point.
Yeah, I don't think the weight miss is going to help Neal. I'm going to go Rakhmonov.
I will go Mateusz Gamrot.
I thought you were going to go the other way. Okay, I'm going to go Gamrot.
Bo Nickal.
Bo Nickal by whatever he wants.
I think we're going to be on the opposite sides here. I'll go Cody Garbrandt, even though I understand what I'm saying here and taking a chance on Cody.
Yeah, I'm going to go Trevin Jones, right hand over.
This is the one that I keep going back and forth on. Plessis.
Yeah, my boy. Dricus Plessis.
I'll go Viviane Araujo in a little bit of an upset.
Okay, I like that. I'm going to go Amanda Ribas.
I'm going to go another underdog in Julian Marquez.
Okay, I'm going to go Marc-Andre Barriault.
I'll go Ian Garry. I'll go Cameron.
Yeah, Cameron Simon.
Ricci. Basharat.
Yep, Basharat for me.
And I'll take Rajabov.
Rajabov for me as well, man.
Getting some questions. First up, Sam over here. He says, being 14 fight card, all you have usual questions in a different ways. Top 3 cash. For me, Jones, Nickal, and my third. I mean, I hate to give it. I mean, yeah. I mean, especially because of the 5 round. Yeah.
That's got to be how you got to do the cash.
Yeah. Top 3 GPPs.
I still think Jones is probably atop that list.
I keep thinking about, even though I like Jones to win the fight, I keep thinking about, okay, at 7,800, Gane can get to 100 points in a win fairly easily. I mean, but I think he's going to need knockdowns to be able to get to that number.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why some people have reservations about this fight not making it into the optimal lineup. I think it's going to carry a tremendous amount of ownership. So if you want to get away from it, by all means, it's going to separate yourself from the pack 100%. Just make sure you're targeting the correct fights,
Yeah,
the correct GPP fights.
Yeah, I mean, like GPP, I would say this, and Sam, as a just an overall fight aspect, to me, the fights you got to look at: Gamrot, Turner, Garbrandt, Jones. And then the third one,
Stu Plessis, Brunson for me atop the list.
Yeah, I mean just because of the cardio of both those guys. Top 3 underdogs. I would put Ciryl Gane in a top 3 underdog. I mean, I mean, it's just even though I like Jones, I think if you look at underdogs, I think had the best shot to win. I look at some of the names that stick out to me: Gane, Turner, Jones, Araujo would be probably my top 4.
I'm gonna go Gane, Jones. The last one's a little tricky. I might say Brunson, even though I am a Duplessis guy. You know what I mean? Just because it's just a fight I expect to be fantasy goodness.
Favorite inside the distance fights, top optimal plays. Inside the distance, Nickal Pickett would be at the top of my list.
Yeah. Bo Nickal inside the distance. Bo Nickal round 1, minus 200.
And I mean, look, the other side of that is what does Bo Nickal look like in minute 4? We don't know.
He looks like fantastic.
I do too. But it's an unknown. It's just an unknown at this point,
I would agree with you.
Top leverage plays that can break the slate. In terms of leverage plays that could break the slate,
I'm surprised. I thought Ciryl Gane would be a lot lower owned. I just didn't find too many people that would be on that same side as me. I think it's more of a stack than anything. But I think that probably Trevin Jones is probably one of those leverage plays on the slate where it's just like, you got a ton of low ownership there. Yeah.
Top dart pump plays. Grasso's a cash pump play for me, not necessarily a GPP pump play. Other pump plays I would probably look at. Blackshear would be probably a pump play.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. I mean, I'm not getting to any Jamie Pickett. I might not get to any Alexa Grasso, but outside of, I'll probably get to some Alexa Grasso. I'm debating if I want to get to any Son Kenan.
Yeah.
If he lands a right hand, he could break the slate, but I just don't see it.
Top 3 parlay picks. So if I was going to put together a 3-fight parlay, I would stay away from Bo Nickal just because of the odds. I mean, it's just so damn crazy. Ian, Garry, Shavkat, Rakhmonov, John Jones.
Interesting. Love it.
His overall. Do you have a parlay?
Parlay for me, not at the moment. I'll probably have one for you on tomorrow's show.
Okay. His over under is 7.5. 14 fights.
Yeah, over.
Yeah, over would be the one that I would lean to as well. Tristan asked about highest priority fights. Gamrot, Turner, Nickal, Pickett, Garbrandt, Jones would be my top 3.
Okay. Fair enough.
I know
I just can't wait.
I feel like there were some other questions that were asked. I'm trying to find it in our Discord.
We'll be there tomorrow too, so I can't wait to see what everybody has for lineups. Hopefully, we don't have any cancellations this week. So
yeah. Best value plays under 8K on DraftKings. Gone. You have to put in that. 7,800. Turner 7,600. I'd put in that mix. Jones 7,700. I'd put in that mix. Brunson 7,500.
Mm-hmm.
Mono Martinez a little bit of upside there. Those probably the ones in Blackshear.
Yeah, and as far as like who the promotion wants to win, like I would agree. Like a promotion wants certain fighters to win, could influence some people. I just think that's more of like it's nice if it happens. We've seen a ton of people just spoil the party for the UFC, and you could tell when Dana White's pissed off when things don't go the way that the promotion plans. Of course, like when we see, prospects. Like if Bo Nickal gets destroyed by, Jamie Pickett, he's going to be upset.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you want high profile names. Like, of course, every time Conor McGregor fights, it's a more lucrative night. That could influence some people, whether they want to believe so or not. But at the end of the day, like we've been seeing some weird scorecards, but I think it's more so lack of understanding the sport than it is anything.
Let's get some questions in here from the YouTube chat. This comes in from Ryan. Says, if we roster Shevchenko and Nickal and DraftKings, you're only left with $77.50 left in salary. Can we still build a competitive lineup with GPP winning upside?
Great question. I mean, I don't know if Nickal and Shevchenko is the way. I think you got to have one. They're a little too rich. That's too much salary. 96 and 94. That's way too much. You know what I mean? That's 19,000 right there. So it's like, I'd say one of them. Stick to one.
Yeah.
You need a lower end 9,000 or mid 8,000 mixed with a Bo Nickal or Shevchenko. Not too high nines.
Oh, P Senior in the chat.
Yeah, that's what I was referencing. I know. I think Pops, I would agree that sometimes certain judges are influenced by things, and more so, you could tell what a promotion wants to do. At least we can, because we know what we're talking about. Like, but it doesn't go like that. There are some people who want to be in the good graces of the UFC or certain promotions for sure, of course. But at the end of the day, if you put out a terrible card and the internet is dogging you, you're going to know about it.
Look, I don't want to sit in that seat. I do not want to sit in that seat.
Me either, brother. Me either. And that's why I said, like, you were like, you remember you told me this, you're like, you'd have to do some judging. I'm like, I wouldn't do no judging. I would just do reffing because my experience has been in the cage. And I'm telling you right now, like, I would ref 1,000%. And my mom, my dad, my girlfriend, everybody's like, you should do this when you retire. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to, but I'm not crossing that bridge yet. Far from it, but I plan on reffing. I don't want to do the collab. Oh, ref some nights, judge some. I don't want any. No, that's not going to be. Like, I think all ex-fighters, they're looking to make some money. Mm-hmm. Instead of taking these bare knuckle fights, learn to be a judge. Give back to the community. You complain about judging all the time, or you complain about reffing all the time. You should know the sport better than anybody. Mm-hmm. Get yourself involved in the sport that made you.
Next up, Samuel. Any stackable fights? Maybe the co-main event?
You think the main event could be stackable?
I feel like God.
Can you imagine John Jones, tons of takedowns? He'd have to.
I feel like
he win.
Yeah, I feel like you need a Gane win for that to be stackable.
I think the salaries would have to be flipped, don't you?
Yeah.
Like a loser with takedowns. I mean, a lower salary fighter with takedowns would have to lose, and the higher striker with more volume. I don't know. It's interesting to me, but I don't think I'm going to stack anything this week.
Yeah, I don't see, especially when you're talking about 14 fights. I mean, if you're at 10 fights, 11 fights, then I think it makes a little more sense. Pete, let's end the show talking a little bit about the prop sites over there. So let's go over to Prize Picks. I mentioned about over at Prize Picks, I think there's some really interesting numbers out there. I'll go, just kind of working down the card. Shevchenko, I like the more 2.5 takedowns. If this thing hits, round 4, she's going to get at least 3 takedowns. I would be shocked if that doesn't go over. I kind of like the over 1.5 takedowns on Shavkat Rakhmonov at 1.5. The other ones, Bo Nickal, man, the fight time was 4.5 minutes. It's now down to 4. I really wouldn't touch much on Bo Nickal over there. The other ones that stuck out to me, I'm trying to find the ones that really stuck out to me. The Ian Garry takedowns at 1/2. give me more on that one. I think
I like
Song has
more
been
than that.
taken down. I think that's one that's a mispriced over there on the price pick side of the equation.
Or Song hits him with a right hand. He's like, hell no, I'm grappling him. So I like that line as well. Good call.
Is there anything else on prize picks that stuck out to you?
Not really. I was kind of just looking at these Bo Nickal props and like, I mean, maybe you go fight time 4, but I'd hate to lose that to like 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Like that would be dumb. Fantasy score is a little tricky over on that platform. So probably go significant strikes of Valentina Shevchenko against a boxer who likes to strike 52.5. Something that's just a little low in my opinion, but it all comes down to the game plan of Shevchenko. I think she just blends it so well.
Over at Underdog Fantasy, I do like the two of the props on Ian Garry. His takedown is at a half. I like more than that. Finishes half. I like more. I think he gets a finish. In that matchup, also over there, I mean, Bo Nickal's takedown is at 2 over on Underdog. I'm tempted to say less because I think it may only take 1.
Yeah, I don't. I hope for my sake at 9,600, Bo Nickal has to get multiple takedowns. Then we can actually see his true skill set.
Yeah.
Like that's what you want. You want somebody to test him, to see him in 10 minutes. 10 minutes of fighting. If you give me 10 minutes of Bo Nickal fighting, he breaks the slate at 9,600. I'm just completely convinced.
Look, and then over at Super Draft, I do like the numbers on the Gamrot Turner fight. A lot of it's kind of the way we've kind of talked about the DraftKings and FanDuel slate of this one. Shevchenko as a champion at 1.6, I think is interesting over there. But if you're looking kind of at some potential value plays over there, maybe you look at someone like a Duplessis, Trevin Jones, Rakhmonov. I would probably put more in the champion than I would in the flex position.
Yeah. Good calls, man. Absolutely good calls. I can't wait to see what's in store for tomorrow's show. What questions you guys have. If you didn't tune in to us live today, please save your questions for tomorrow. We're on at 4:30? An hour before the fight start?
4:30 Eastern time.
There we go.
It means I actually have to work on a Saturday.
Yeah, well, I'm not working on a Saturday night, so that's going to be nice. And just be able to kick back, watch the fights, see where we're right, see where we're wrong, and if we're wrong, still able to make some money and make it a profitable night for everybody.
I mean, look, we see that background. We got to get Pete some money to pay for all these diapers.
Oh my God, I know. Everybody's super generous. We got so many diapers, but a lot of people telling me that's not going to last long. So what are we on? 33 days? Baby's coming within 33 days. So holy moly, it's getting real.
Yeah, it'll be here before you know it. It'll be right at the beginning of April, and I'm gonna get this. Hey Pete, show's starting in 5 minutes. You're like, hey man, I'm changing the diaper right now. I'll be there as soon as I can.
Yeah, imagine she'll be joining us for the shows. That'll be really cool. But yeah, man, we're excited, beyond excited. Grandparents are excited. Just all in all, the families are just so happy, and I cannot wait.
That's awesome. But of course, as Pete mentioned, we will be here tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time. Of course, hit up that contest we have over on DraftKings. It's right here in the description. Also, if you've not jumped into that Discord channel, do that as well. A link is below. We will talk to you tomorrow. We appreciate everyone tuning in for our preview of UFC 285.